Alright guys, how are you all doing tonight? This is of course Luke back here with yet another album review. Sorry I've been slacking, I've been on uploads, I've been pretty busy with 4th of July events and all that shit, and plus laziness. Yeah man. I've had an off week this week, so I'm gonna try to be get some more videos out here for you guys. And tonight we're gonna be reviewing some amazing aggressive thrash metal or death thrash, if you prefer, with Sadus. Chemical Exposure, released in 1991. Now the lineup on this album is as follows: John Allen on drums, Darren Travis on vocals and guitars, Steve DiGiorno on bass, and Rob Moore on guitars. Now let's get into a biography and history of this band, as I always do. Sadus was an American thrash metal band from Antioch, California, active from 1984 to 2015, and again from 2017 to 2021. Originally a quartet, the band's sound fuses thrash metal with death metal, featuring highly technical musicianship. They're known for unique death growl of vocalist Darren Travis and bassist Steve DiGiorno. During their run, Sadus had released 5 studio albums, 1 compilation album and 4 demos, and had only 1 lineup change. When the guitarist Rob Moore left the band in 1993, instead of replacing him, the band would continue on as a trio until their final disbandment in 2021. Sadus came together as a quartet in 1984, consisting of vocalist Darren Travis, guitarist Rob Moore, bassist Steve DiGiorno, and drummer John Allen. I always have trouble pronouncing his name. 2 years later, the band would release their 1986 DTP Death to Posers demo tape. These sessions led directly to the inclusion of 2 tracks on the 1987 Raging Death compilation album. Quick to capitalize on this achievement, Sadus stuck their hands out in the pockets to self-finance, and progress was quickened as a deal with the label. Roadrunner Records was secured, resulting in a further album, Swallowed in Black, and touring with the likes of Sepultura and even Obituary. Sadus was sadly put on hold for 1991 as DiGiorno opted to assist Death for their Human album. With this added exposure, Roadrunner re-released the Illusions debut retitled Angel, although a further album for Roadrunner, 1992's A Vision of Misery, resulted in a European headline tour. Sadus found itself labelless upon their return. Further setbacks occurred when DiGiorno was enticed back to Death for the Individual Thought Patterns album and a subsequent year-long bout of touring. DiGiorno was to return for club shows with Sadus, but before any momentum could be gained, sadly, Moore bailed out. Now, without further ado, guys, let's get in to this review. Sadus' debut belongs to a certain subset of thrash metal records that came out in the mid-1980s. In the vein of Pleasure to Kill, Rain and Blood, Darkness Descends, Eternal Melodic Fare, you'll find a lot of bands. This goes straight for the jugular and doesn't let go. The songs tend to be shorter and faster, with vocals that can border on death metal. The records themselves rarely pass 40 minutes and tend more to be in the 30s. In short, face-melting, utterly punishing, high beats per minute statements of violence, both very unsubmitable and very enjoyable. This record, put simply, is all those things combined. From the album's opener, Certain Death, Sadus doesn't beat around the fucking bush. After about 30 seconds of slowly increasing feedback, the thrash madness begins, and doesn't let up for the next 25 fucking minutes. Certain Death, to be honest, is probably the best song on the album. It even has a short section in 9/8, which I didn't even notice was there until I looked at the tab. That's a hallmark of impressive compositional skill, being able to sneak progressive parts into a song like that while still keeping the straight ahead thrash vibe intact, despite being probably the best one on the album. Certain Death has some stiff competition. The album isn't quite at the level where every track is uniformly amazing, but it's still quite consistent. There's more or less not a bad song on here, with the exception of the final track, which I'll go into later in this review. Now, the songs are fairly similar. barreling along a high intensity and crushing all in its fucking path. Each band member is amazing in their own right. Steve DiGiorno is probably responsible for a lot of people finding out about this band in the early years. The guy has been all over the place in the past 20 years, and this was where he got his first start. The bass isn't quite as virtuous as can be seen in his later works, but it's still very good. And while not the most technical he's ever done, it's very interesting and well composed. And in my opinion, that's all that you really need, man. You don't need technicality to be good. All you need is passion, aggression, emotion, and this band has all three of those fucking things. A good bass sound that's high in the mix can do a lot for an album, and it does a lot for this one as well. I can't think of many, or even any thrash album with a bass quite as prominent as the one on here. It adds a lot of nuance to the album, but doesn't do so at the expense of any heaviness or brutality. Because all the heaviness and brutality is certainly still fucking here, as this is death thrash metal. It also works well with the guitar. DiGiorno isn't just following the guitar, but he's not going off in another direction, counterproductive to the songs either. There are, however, occasional short bass solos scattered throughout the album, which are great and work much better than I would have even expected for this kind of album. This bass work and Darren Travis falsetto are the two things that make this album really stand out. Another track that really stands out on here and really catches my attention and makes me headbang every time is the track Hands of Fucking Fate, man. It's just so killer. In fact, let's check out Hands of Fate, guys, right here on the channel. We'll be right back.
One of my rights, take them and number in
we are back, guys. Holy fuck, that's such an amazing track. Darren Travis handles both vocals and half the guitars in this, both of which are stellar. The riff work here is pretty standard for this period, namely very, very good. His vocals are a bit more unique. A lot of it's fairly standard, raspy, proto-death stuff, but he also sometimes does an awesome sort of shrieking. Fasaldo said Fasaldo is of the really high, raspy sort, reminding of Sheepdog of Razor or Ken Nardo of Anarosis. One song where it particularly stands out is Torture, where it's used in a lot of considerably effect. The man sounds like he's being tortured while singing about it. This Fasaldo and the bass works, and the two things that make this album really, really stand out. Without them, it'd still be good, but with them, it's both good and even more interesting. John Allen on drums is the uncomfortable position of being a very good musician next to two incredible ones here. Still, he puts off a very good performance, keeping a steady groove at speeds in excess of 200 beats per minute and being generally up to the task of the physically strenuous job of a thrash metal drummer. His double bass work, which shows up in spots, is quite impressive in my opinion as a drummer myself. He doesn't do incredibly progressive things here, but in a way, that's a good thing with albums like this. With the more wild acrobatics of the other two members, Allen keeps stuff fair grounded, which you do need a little bit of this in this particular subgenre. Now, remember when I said earlier in the video there are more or less no bad tracks on this album? Well, now we kind of come to the more or less. The last track on the album, now, I think I can see what Sadus were trying to do with this here, but in this instance it doesn't really work, and the reason is why that's the reason I can't give this album a 9 out of 10 or more. Closing with an instrumental is something that could work on an album. Maybe it even could have worked on this one, though I rather doubt it. The problem isn't with the song either, it concerns the structure of an album. When you want something to really hit home, send off the message of the album loud and clear, you've got to end it with a real bang. Creator and Slayer knew this much, finishing off their respective most famous albums in this category of thrash under the Guillotine of Raining Blood. Both were among the strongest tracks in the album. I suspect Rain and Blood wouldn't have the reputation it has today if it had a different track than the closure. What Sadus perhaps and eventually have done here is to create a violent onslaught of an album that doesn't let up on things until the last track comes. And well, what would fit here is a blisteringly violent track, an affirmation of the album's goal and message, namely to smash your fucking face in through the whole 25 minutes. Instead, we get a vaguely creepy sounding ambient instrumental that does not really affirm a crushing thrash metal album. It affirms something rather more cerebral and modern, is I guess the really term. I mean, this isn't really a bad thing, and it might have worked as an intro of some kind, but it simply doesn't fit where it is. If I could change one thing about this album, or one thing I think they could have really changed, is just fucking hammer away through the whole fucking album. If you're gonna hammer away through 99% of it, don't leave out that 1%. But that's just that, and that is the biggest flaw of the album, really. Nothing else is too bad about it. So, at its core, Chemical Exposure is a quality slab of violent, unrelenting 80s thrash metal. It stands a bit apart from the fact by very, very good performances and a somewhat surprising undercurrent of creativity. Aside from the impressive task of being this heavy for comparatively sophisticated without sacrificing a lot of face melting, and that's no easy task. If you like the heavier side of thrash like myself, or just like extreme metal in general, this will definitely be up your alley. And overall, I have to give this album a solid 8 out of 10, as towards then it could have been better, but that still does not take away from how fucking good this shit is. And with that, that's going to wrap up another album review here in the books for you guys. Sadus, Chemical Exposure. If you guys enjoyed the video, make sure to hit the like and subscribe with notifications on. And if you'd like to join me or Chaos's Discord, the links to those will also be down in the description. I'm going to try to get 2 or 3 more videos out here for you before the weekend ends. By Sunday, hopefully be looking forward to 3 or 4 more new videos. I'm going to be trying to get in here and work on them. Last night my room was hot as fuck, but hey, I'm going to try to continue working on them. Be expecting a Pantera CD rip tonight. I got the deluxe edition of the Great Southern Trendkill, so be expecting to see that. And probably later on in the month, me and Chaos, probably this next coming week or something, we're probably going to get to doing a podcast as well, so also be on the lookout for that. And I hope you guys enjoyed. Until next time, have yourselves a fucking good one.